extended thank you for those that came along, and I know GridMind made a big impression with our researchers, so well done, thank you so much. For those who I haven't met before, we've got online guests, we've got a panel today. I'm Dr. Sam Horseman. I lead HDR Innovation and Industry across our campuses, and I also align with our Queensland AI Hub and run the Cairns AI chapter, and also the chairperson for the AI Consortium for Australia. So wear many hats, and I love it. And I think we're doing some great work here with our founders and residents. And today we're centering our conversation more around research and what impact does research have in the marketplace and in industry. In the room we have our founders and residents, so welcome. We have researchers, hands up researchers, and some students. We have interns. We also have some visitors, and then I'll also have a chance to introduce our first panel today. So we're going to be going strong for 5 hours. Not you guys, don't worry. Phew! And so we will be going on right through to the afternoon. We also will be having lunch and popcorn, because we'll be also serving up one of our movies all around climate action and environmental science. So it's a big day, and we'll be doing the same thing tomorrow. So just to give you a heads up about what this event is. If we have to depart the building for any safety, we go through just that side and that side over here. I'm actually an official fire warden for the building, so you can follow me. I know you will trust me, and I'll take you to the assembly area. For those of you that need the bathrooms, they're just out to the cut, copy and paste, second and first floor. And I know some of you are already very familiar with the JCU Ideas Lab, but I know that we have visitors today, so I just wanted to make sure everyone is good. Checking in on our back of house, thumbs up. So we've got Ramona and also Jake from our IT college. And they'll be also working on the back of house. We've got some guests online as well. So welcome to our guests online. So we'll make a start, and I thought really the best way to move into this amazing panel is to position the idea around research and the impact that it has into the marketplace and also into industry. And we have an amazing panel today, and we also have a special guest, a visiting politician, and also on the Churchill Foundation, Hugh, from Ireland, who flew especially here for today's session. No, joking. She's here visiting Australia, so let's give a big round of applause to Cara. Welcome to Australia. You'll hear her story and also about the Churchill Foundation and the scholarship, and also a little bit of background around her and what she's doing and what she wants to do while she's here in Australia. Research background, really interesting. Pia, you're going to love this. AI governance, but women's safety online. So this is fantastic. So Cara Rogers will share your LinkedIn profile. Is that okay? Yep. Once you get to know us, right? we're a good bunch. And so we've got a really great panel around Medtech. So Medtech will be covered by Adam Jacobson, who's one of our founders and residents, but has also navigated the Medtech sector and is going to really provide some insights, especially for researchers. And also, how does that work when you get to those higher TRL levels in the prototyping and MVP stage? So keen to hear from you on that. I'll hand over to Hilary Watson, who is our investor in residence, but also has an amazing background in that startup economy, but also venture studio, venture builder space, and also clinical trials. We've had lots of conversations. Hilary does fantastic work with our founders and residents portfolio. Next to Hilary, we have Richard. Dr. Richard will be giving us a real lowdown on biotech. is currently in the Australian Institute for Tropical Medicine, and we'll also be hearing from Macrobiome from Paul later on today. So it's going to be interesting to hear that story. But I'm keen to hear around the biotech sector. And I thought another positioning statement we could actually have is around what was released yesterday. So as part of our work that we're doing here in our JCU Ideas Lab is around the innovation and industry. Yesterday, we also launched National Science Week for Australia, which is, you've come at a great time. We've got lots going on. And then, if you don't mind, Ramona, just opening up that second tab, what was released as part of this National Science Week is the 15-year strategy from the Minister, Andrew Powell. He released this as part of the National Science Week, and it's our 15-year strategy on science and innovation. And it's a very rich document because we've travelled across Queensland and conducted workshops to gather consultation. So this is going to be a really great read. We'll be bringing it up at each Connectivity Cafe to further discuss the main themes and also where we can really align and get support. Before we start today's sessions, I'd love to invite Dr. Jackie Lavis to do our acknowledgement. Jackie, you'll need the microphone too. Did you want to come centre stage?
Yes.
And I'll actually come and take my seat.
I'm not going to sit down. I'm too wobbly on those. Good morning, everybody. My name's Jackie Lavis. We meet on the lands of the Jabbergai people, and we're surrounded by a number of language groups and nations in the locality. So we have the Mandingambar Yidinji to the south, and the Irraganji and Yidinji peoples. Further south again, across the Murray-Prior Range, really needs to be renamed. We have the Gunganji people. To the north, we have the Kuku-Yulanji. A deep landscape of thinking, negotiating, survival. I feel that these people would not have survived if it weren't for deep thinking and research. Every day was a challenge. Every day before contact, you were negotiating a comparatively hostile landscape, floods, cyclones, deep tidal ranges. After contact, you were negotiating a whole range of different challenges: deep thinking, research, collaboration, hiding, activism, and coming forward with your ideas. So now we have an extraordinary Indigenous ecosystem emerging. And let's hold that thought as we meet today and talk through the number of strategies for our working day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Back over to Ramona. So I might actually grab that for the speakers. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Jackie. So what I thought I'd like to do now is invite our guest, who's been totally, sorry, Cara, just on the spot here, opportunity. But I'd love to hear about your research and also a little bit about why you're here in Australia. That might be a great way. And then we'll have some introductions from the other panelists.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Hopefully this is working okay.
Yeah, it's more for online. Yeah.
So my name is Cara Hunter, and I'm here today from Northern Ireland, north of Ireland. I am an MLA, which means Member of the Legislative Assembly for Northern Ireland, and I'm with the Social Democratic and Labour Party. So within my party, I sit on the Education Committee, and I'm basically young people, children and women spokesperson. And I've been part of the Churchill Fellowship for the past year, and it has given me the most remarkable opportunity to come to Australia for about 16 days. And I recently met with the eSafety Commissioner's Office and having conversations all about women, deepfakes, democracy, online safety, and really looking at as we move forward to the future, how we can ensure our young people through education are learning about safe tech, the harm that emerging technologies can cause, malicious use of AI and the impact that that can have. In Northern Ireland, it is the most to be a woman or girl. So my piece of research is really honing in on the harms that online AI can create. That's not to take away, of course, of the importance of utilising AI in our everyday work. I know I do, and the importance of innovation. But of course, I think from that policy perspective, particularly in Northern Ireland, as our online regulation is conducted in Westminster, we can feel quite powerless at times. So my aspiration with this piece of work is to learn from everything Australia has to offer. I'm so impressed by your e-safety commissioner model. I'm meeting with the Australian Human Rights Commission and others as well, and specialists in this area. So a pleasure to be here, and so excited to learn more today from you all.
Amazing, thank you. Welcome. I'll pass down the line now. So Richard, do you want to do just an introduction and a little bit about your background?
Sure,
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. And thanks, Sam, for inviting me here to speak today. It's nice to have the opportunity to meet everybody. My name's Richard Mollard, and my background is in biomedical sciences. So I have a PhD. I also did an MBA to understand what the other side of the investment table would look like, and I'm currently a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, which gives me ongoing learning in governance, which I think is extremely important when you're thinking about setting up biotech companies. So I've worked in universities in collaboration with Big Pharma, doing early blue discovery research to increase Big Pharma's pipeline, for example. I've worked setting up cryobanks and businesses in Southeast Asia using other people's research, basically. So people looking at hematopoietic stem cells and wanting to get them into the clinic for things like acute lymphoblastic leukemia or myelocytic leukemia. I've also worked as a consultant for public companies, public listed, unlisted companies, private companies. I've worked executive functions in these companies as well, and I've worked as a founder setting up startup biotech companies. So mostly this is in cancer, neurodegeneration, respiratory function, and osteoporosis, I guess. Thanks.
Amazing, thank you, welcome. I'll pass it down to Hilary.
Yep.
I'm Hilary, for those of you in the room who don't know me. My background was banking and consulting, management consulting, and then I transitioned into what I love, which is startups, and was really lucky to be a part of some startups that were successful, some startups where we learned a lot of lessons, and along that journey also was on the other side, started investing in startups as well. So through that journey, done a variety of industries, including medical, primarily dental, and then clinical trials through investing in a clinical trial software. Yeah, this space is really, really interesting and I think really involving. And so I'm really excited to really hear from the panelists and everybody in the room in terms of the questions and the discussion today on what's interesting and what people are excited about in this space.
Amazing, thank you, Hilary, welcome.
Thank you.
I'll sit down to Adam. Pass the mic.
Hello, for those who don't know me, my name is Adam Jacobson. I'm a founder in residence here as well, working on a project that's not in the medical space, but my career has been in medical technology, health technology, and I guess originated having done a Bachelor of Applied Science in Medical Radiations, Nuclear Medicine, and I want to emphasise the applied science there because I'm a very hands-on person. I like to tinker and get things working. But having done that, I moved into software vendors in the radiology sphere, just as there was a transition from using film to digital reporting. And I was involved in many implementations of digital reporting software around Australia and Southeast Asia before moving up to hospital level systems and taking care of various clinical modules in a portfolio for an electronic medical record. I then moved into radiology AI and what is essentially machine learning view of chest x-rays and CT chests. And now I I contract part of my time to a French company who has a digital virtual biopsy machine. So instead of your skin cancers getting cut and biopsied, it actually uses a laser device to inspect the lesions at cellular level, potentially avoiding a biopsy. So I guess I've sort of moved around in the implementation side of things and the market side of things with the, we're testing the market for that device at the moment. There's only 4 in the country and one of them's here in Cairns.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Amazing. Thank you. Welcome, Adam. So what I thought I'd do is also invite Dr. Kranthi from more the Edtech side of the table to also join us. And my seat is what I call a hot seat. So I can call on anyone. So no one is safe in the room. So Dr. Kranthi, come and join us up on stage, because you've got lots to contribute into this discussion around lab to market and how research impact is seen in the marketplace, but also across industry. So I'll let you do a quick introduction. We're using this because we've got online guests. Yeah.
Hello everyone, myself Kranthi Addanki. Thank you, Sam, for giving me the hot seat.
Yes, so, always welcome.
Oh yeah, so I'm an IT lecturer here, JSU Cairns, but before that I did my PhD in JSU Townsville. So my background is learning science. I'm a learning science researcher, and specifically with the help of Sam, I'm now going into like a edupreneur, like Edtech space. So that is the brief about me.
Amazing. I'll run the mic. I'll be mic runner and standing moderator. So my first question, and please feel free, because this is a really open, dynamic forum, and that's how we like to conduct our panels. And we do have the hot seat, as I mentioned. But I'd like to go back in the sequence that we started with, and I'm really keen to hear first from Cara around about, you gave some great examples of some really amazing research that you're working on. And I'd like to hear from you about how do you feel that transitions into action, and how does this transition into everyday life, so that we can think about online safety, especially for women and girls, but also that AI governance. I'm really keen to hear from you.
Thank you. First of all, I think an incredible question. I've been a politician now 7 years in total. When it comes to AI regulation and understanding the threats that I suppose AI can cause and the level and the extent of harm it can cause, it has taken a very long time, I think, to see the urgency I believe is necessary to combat these kinds of harms. What we have seen is growth in the UK when it comes to deepfake laws and recognition of the harms that they create. In England and Wales, it is now illegal to both create and share non-consensual deepfakes. However, in Northern Ireland, because we are devolved, we do not have those rights. So I think when it comes to action, I certainly think elected representatives have both a moral and a professional obligation to really push and use their platforms and their power to ensure that these concerns are heard. We do have Ofcom, which is our regulator when it comes to, online harms, and I think they're doing a good job. I don't think they're doing a great job, but of course they can only work within the confinements of the laws and legislation that currently exist. I really think education is so powerful in this space. We currently have a curriculum review. I believe it's the first one since 2007 when I was in primary school. So I think changing times, it's important that our young people are aware of these emerging technologies, the incredible blessings and power to educate. Of course, AI is not to be totally demonized. That certainly isn't my belief. I find it really, really helpful. But I think it's on each and every one of us as elected reps to push this forward, to use those education opportunities to drive home media literacy, safeguarding, ending violence against women and girls, and just really, I suppose, communicating, particularly to young men as well, that things like notification apps can ruin a woman's life, and the extent of harm, I think, is really what I care most deeply about. Yeah.
Amazing. Really great insights there. Going to flip my thinking now to biotech. And I'm really keen to hear from Richard, because you gave us a real good spiel of everything that you've, been working on and your roles that you've had, which is, remarkable. And also the fact too that you've aligned science and MBA. So Dennis, I'm sure you're happy to hear some this nice mix, is critical in this field. And I'm curious to hear from you in relation to, because we've got actually some future students in the audience that they're working on what their bridging into JCU is about. And I'd like to hear a little bit about how you've merged two worlds, two science, from leadership science to biotech, and how that works in relation to career.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Sam. So I think it's about risk-taking and maybe backing yourself, or not even backing yourself, but not really worrying about the consequences. So after my PhD, this is back in the 90s actually, and we only had faxes. There was no email. And I faxed off 10 or 12 company or institutes around the world, just looking for a postdoc position, because my friends in Europe said that's what you do. And so you throw caution to the wind and you say, hey, I'm finishing my PhD, I'm going to be in Europe in August, and you're not, but you're just hoping to get one person say, yeah, come and give us a talk. And everybody loves it if you offer to give them a presentation. So of all of the invitations I put out, everyone said, yep, that's great, come and give us a talk. And I thought, oh, okay, now I'm in trouble. What am I going to do? Because I've got to get there, and I've got to work out how I'm going to get through, I think it was England, France, Holland, Germany, Italy, like so many countries, and I didn't really have a plan. So you've got to come up with some sort of a plan, and you do it by sleeping in tents in campsites with your suits and tie, and getting up at the morning and getting dressed and looking at all the backpackers who are looking at you and thinking what's going on. But, thankfully, I did my roadshow, and your presentation gets better and better, of course, because you're getting feedback from absolutely amazing people all over the world. And then strategically, I accepted a position which I was really lucky to be offered, and this was actually my last presentation, so I'd probably honed my skills by then. And this was working with Bristol Myers Squibb and Louis Pasteur, and they wanted somebody to take some of their agonists and antagonists and screen them. So I knew I was getting into industry, or getting a taste of it that way, and it was pretty much at the cutting edge globally of preclinical research. And it just gave me a fantastic education in the expectations, incentives, who the different stakeholders are, and what you need for drug development at the early level. And I was lucky enough that there was a patent office, and I made some interesting discoveries and said, look, maybe we can do this. Bristol Myers Squibb says, yep, fantastic, we've got to write a patent, we want to do some licensing, so they get you involved. I then came back as PI at Monash, and I was kind of fighting over where the car park is in the meetings, and I thought, well, I might see what I can do. And this is why I went into an MBA, because I really enjoyed the commercialization side of things. And I just loaded up on things I didn't know. So when you're trying to make a bridge, lots of people just go for the easy subjects, but so you can pass your degree. But I chose finance and governance, management of intellectual property, and also economics, just things I didn't know about, but knew I had to value products and companies if I was going to do commercialization. So the MBA was actually a very, very good bridge to do that. And it gave me a whole lot of skills which I would never have had otherwise, and that were forced on me. Like, it's not, when you're in academia, you start, well, I did anyway, because you're kind of at the top of the field and you're always giving yourself your own learning. But when you go into a classroom again, when you're 40 years old and people are telling you, you've got to sit this exam and you're going to tell us about this, it's an extremely humbling experience, in fact. So once you get these other skill sets, you've got to do something with it. And that is kind of the tricky transition part. And it's another high risk component. And you speak with your friends, you see what other people are doing, and you think, look, let's start a company. So you have to find people who might be willing to back you financially. You have to think about the intellectual property. You have to think about governance, what structures you're going to set up. You have to come up with a full roadmap, and you have to go on a roadshow again and see who's going to back you. So it's a big learning curve, but I always liked, well, I was actually hoping we'd be in this room because I've been sitting here and listening to people talk about innovation, and you have the bungee jump there. And so I think it's kind of a physical manifestation of a metaphor somehow.
Taking the risk.
You're taking the risk, but you've got to make sure you're extremely
Cara doesn't know
prepared.
we're taking you thereafter.
You've got to be extremely prepared, and you take the leap, and you know it's a lot of fun. It doesn't matter how it turns out, you're back to yourself and you learn, and it's a lot of fun. So.
And we do hear the screams from the bungee jumping.
Really?
Yeah, we do.
Screams of joy, hopefully. Yes.
Yeah, which is very much, you know, part of our entrepreneurship journey, right? It is those ups and downs. And we're actually having a discussion after this session on the TRL levels and that valley of death.
Yeah,
so, which is maybe
a useful metaphor. Yes.
Linked to the bungee. Awesome. Thanks for that. That was great. That was amazing. I'll move back to the sequence. I think it was Adam was next.
But that's okay. Whichever.
Okay, all right. Well, let's think, Hilary, around sort of, I think, moving on from Richard's discussion and thinking about, you know, that research model of lab to market. And if we've got researchers sitting here in the room or online, what's the first step that you can take?
Yeah. So in my role before coming here, I helped a lot of people in Edtech who are researchers who are on the bungee jumping, I guess, cliff, decide how they were going to jump and whether they were going to go. I think they give you an option of touching the water or not when you go to the bungee jumping.
They do, yeah.
So just to keep the metaphor going, one of the things is, as a researcher, you can make impact by having your work translate and deciding that you don't want to actually be the one taking all the leap of faith yourself and, you know, having different ways of commercializing it, or you take the larger leap and actually find a way to be the primary person commercializing it and learn the skills to really do it. And there's everything in between as well. So I think part of what I saw is researchers need to have enough exposure to decide what leap they're going to take and what works for them, what they want in their life at that stage, and how much risk they want to take and how they want to go that path. And I think Australia is still developing more and more pathways to do that, but there are different studios and different paths, and JCU is one of, you know, has different paths as well to take to do that. But I think it's really getting exposure to the different ways, like the way Richard did and others have done in terms of staying within the university space or actually leaving fully to be able to commercialize it. So I don't know if that's helpful in terms of some researchers in the room who are trying to explore that, but I think it's sometimes researchers feel that they have to leave the university to do it, and sometimes you know, there are pathways where they can stay within that space quite a ways before they actually have to make bigger risk leaps along the way. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or
not really. I think that's a nice summary.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great direction into the work that we do with Impact 10X, for example. So we do have a 3-day AI simulator that we work with researchers in order to take their great research into a startup. And in fact, Dr. Kranthi is a great example, and we'll get to her story in a minute. But to your point, it's really interesting because you can go directly on that academic path, or you can, again, explore different ways that you can still be embodied in your research and have that, often that lab to market direction.
Yeah, and there's some more and more companies that are also doing innovation within themselves, so that's another hybrid option that sometimes exists, depending on your field and your company. And
100%.
A lot of caveats.
Yeah, and actually we have an actual use case. I did see Sajindra, she was here, oh there's Sajindra. Sajindra is a Masters of Data Science student, and so she's graduated. So number one, congratulations for getting through Masters of Data Science. And I wanted to introduce Vincent, who'd like to get into data science, so make sure you have that conversation. But Sajindra, exactly that, was on internship with us and then was able to work with one of our industry in residence that we have here on site, a company called Watzilla. And Watzilla was so impressed with Sajindra's work that she did in spoofing, and make sure you have a good chat with Sajindra. She actually, with her data science hat on, was able to navigate, we thought initially, GPS spoofing. So that's a lot of the data that sits within Watzilla's database. But she actually discovered illegal fishing that was happening, I won't mention where, but it was happening somewhere in the world. And through Sajindra's algorithms and the way that she was analysing the data, she was able to detect that. So well done. So this is a great example of that model working in action. And just to the MBA point, Dennis, I'll just mention that we do have Dennis here, Dr. Dennis, if you'd like to talk about MBAs and anything with the College of Business Law and Governance. Shout out to you. Okay, so now we're going to switch from the lab to market, and then I'd love to hear from the industry perspective, how does that all move inside industry and some of the challenges from an R&D perspective and research? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Adam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think the output of research ultimately has a real world impact, right? And I guess it's intended to. So in the medtech world, that's typically on patient outcomes or clinician workflows. And I have a particular interest in the workflows in clinical environments. But I think that research and the new technology that comes about from it often begets more research. And as an example, in the radiology sphere, for example, they started taking what's called computed radiography. So instead of on film, it was done on a phosphor screen. Now that allowed the images to be reviewed quite quickly and produced a digital image. But then you had the issue of, well, how do you optimise the delivery of that digital image to a radiologist in some sort of remote location? And then there was further research about, pixel streaming the particular data set. So that's what I mean by research, sort of begets research in these fields. From my perspective, implementing this technology, there's always a resistance, and I think there's probably a benefit in researchers becoming somewhat immersed and acknowledging what Hilary has said about maintaining the academia, but there's a benefit in becoming immersed in what that impacts that research is actually having, to understand what those edge cases are and what the flow-on effects are, the ripple effect of that research, I think. And to give you another silly anecdote, that same phosphor screen that is now outdated, it used to be delivered with something called screen cleaner. Now, the radiographers who used to go and take the x-rays would mistake that screen cleaner for cleaning the phosphor screen when it was supposed to be for cleaning the monitor. right? So, you know, the workflows. There's a lot of resistance and slow uptake in some of these new technologies that come about from research, and there's all these edge cases that see trips and stumbles in it being adopted. So that's my perspective from a practical point of view. From a commercial point of view, and particularly in the medical space, it's a highly regulated environment. Government is always involved in some way, shape or form, and is seeking to maximise access, reduce costs, etc., etc. And I guess one of the challenges that I'm having, particularly right now with the digital virtual biopsy device, is that clinicians are actually encouraged to biopsy and excise skin lesions rather than use new imaging technology. Okay, so there's a Medicare rebate available for the old style. There's no Medicare rebate available for the new style. So the French company that I work for are trying desperately to model the commercials around, okay, well, 90% of skin cancers in Australia is seen by GPs, and the other 10% is seen by dermatologists, because dermatologists deal with all the weird stuff. And then GPs are kind of, you know, at the bottom of the food chain in terms of their funding. So how do you get a commercial device in at that level? And so there's a lot of massaging that needs to take place to get that output from the research into a practical usage pattern in different markets. So yeah, that's the struggle we're having right now.
Really interesting, and that goes back to regulation and legislations.
Well, obviously, when it comes to medical technology, there's a process. You know, it's like with drugs; they have to go through sort of an evidence process where, you know, the evidence base is built up to show, you know, the benefits of the technology versus the cost. And then where does that sit with regard to the golden benchmark of what's happening right now? So that's a costly exercise.
Yeah.
And once you've got the product into the market, it's almost like you need the key opinion leaders that are out there, the other clinical researchers, to validate then those aspects of the actual technology for its practical deployment.
Yeah, and so I can almost see the TRL levels being built on that, you know, and getting it to that point. And that goes back, I guess, to the clinical trials work that Hilary's, you know, talking about, right? And engaging
absolutely
that work.
His is even harder because you have to have the billing codes update, and they have to value from a government perspective. They have to accurately do it, which like laparoscopic surgeries, they sometimes make the billing codes much cheaper than open. So the incentives to do a procedure that's over time proven to be less risk and less invasive to a patient and have overall better outcomes. Not that one should always be used over the other, but you need the billing codes to match the right incentives, and sometimes you need the buy-in of the clinical community, not just to say it's safe, but also the government to update the way that they compensate.
Yeah, and things don't move quickly at a regulatory level, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
so yes, there's a long tail, I guess, on the back of all of this research.
So you need
Yeah.
investors and people that can see
Yes.
long-term vision, and movers and shakers who can actually help you to get across that.
That's right.
Which also talks about that co-development very early in research. And I'm really curious to hear anyone's thoughts on that in relation to when do we bring in the commercialization opportunities and the co-development piece at sort of what level, the TRL levels? Anyone?
Pass that to Hilary.
To Hilary? Yeah. Going. Oh, there you go.
That's no problem. So, first of all, for me, the TRL levels seem a bit arbitrary, and I know a lot of grant schemes say, well, you need to be TRL 3, 4 or 5, but I've seen things which are maybe TRL 1 or 2 and you think, oh, that's so easy to commercialise right now, we can get going, and people suggest TRL 4 or 5 and I think, gosh, massive high risk, there's no data in human, like safety is, that's another point on top of what you're talking about along the biotech journey. What you're putting into people has to be safe, and I think it's hard to get very good backing unless you've demonstrated some sort of safety. But bringing in commercial people and at what stage is another arbitrary thing as well, and it depends what your desired outcome might be. So if you want to run your program, you have to think about what your incentives are and what you want to get out of it later on. If you bring the commercial team in from the beginning and you don't have patents or you don't have ownership or you don't have good relationships with the business development office, then you'll probably lose your idea to somebody else. Like, you really need to have established some sort of protection in that field. This especially when you're thinking about developing cancer drugs, for example, like you might have an observation with cell lines in the laboratory. So we once had, or people I was working with once had a hypothesis, for example, that sheep anthelmintic might work as an anti-cancer drug just based on precedent and structure. And so you go into the lab, secretly do some experiments yourself, secretly put a patent on, and then go to the large pharma who owns it and say, look, did you know your drug has anti-cancer activity, and would you like a first right of refusal for a license? And then you can work together with that company, hopefully, to bring it to fruition. Or alternatively, there may be extremely interesting applications that you don't see as a commercial value. And I was lucky enough to be involved with a clinician who was working with beta thalassemia, and he wanted to sequence everybody in Victoria, their mutations. And so I sat down in the lab and did that, and we looked at 200 individuals, and you know, at no stage we're thinking about the commercial outcome of this precise research project, but the impact can be equally as massive. So these people, for example, would have to come in every second day for a blood transfusion because you're unable to bind oxygen and carry it through your blood. And without knowing what the exact mutation is, you think, well, we've got to take a low-risk approach because otherwise these people might die if we don't get them a transfusion every second day. But by understanding what the mutation is and how you can say to people, well, look, this individual can come back once a month for a transfusion, or this person once a week, or this person every 2 months, and you give a massive amount of this person's life back. So when you're developing the product, I mean, the commercialization is explicitly on the product that you're developing and what your motivations are. I think you've always got to protect yourself very early, and doing that is owning your product. Probably never divulge everything until a patent's in place, because people like to steal things like low-hanging fruit. Ideas go very quickly, but the earlier you set up the commercialization program, the better. So I think just having basic efficacy and a little bit of mechanism of action in biomed, at least, you can do that yourself without getting commercialization involved. But once you have that and you're in the position of putting in a patent, then you need to speak to professionals like your patents or your tax accountants like James, for example, to think about how a company structure is going to be set up when the timeline is going to start, because once you put a patent in, you've got 12 months under the Patent Cooperation Treaty before it goes to international phase, and you can change things along the way, but then the horse is bolted basically, and you're looking at massive costs to get your things through the clinical trial landscape so that you can get a marketable product. And with this, you need licensing. As I've spoken about before, you need governance, you need to understand all of the stakeholders, and you really need good business partners and people with understanding of the whole process to help you through that. And if you set it up very early, you're going to have the greatest chance of success. And if you set it up too late, then you're destroying value and you may not get to the end point. So yeah, just think about how you can retain the technology yourself if you want to maintain an association with it, and yeah, start speaking with people early.
Amazing, thank you so much. I think it's a great segue also into the next session we're having, because we'll be talking about that from the TRL levels and that valley of death, so, and also from that patent perspective. And so within our portfolio, we do have our investor in residence and finance in residence, James, who was, we also have Donna Patani, who is one of our, a JCU graduate, so she was alum, and she also helps with that patent filing, and also IP attorney. So we do have that there. Now I'm going to shift gears from patents and protecting and the TRL levels over to Kranthi to talk more about how you've taken that journey back from cohort 20 at Impact 10X, completed your PhD, so congratulations, Kranthi, Dr. Kranthi. And now you've taken that research that you've worked on with your PhD, and now you've spun it out into your own startup, and now you've actually returning it back to JCU for our PhD at work. Amazing story here. So we've got a PhD at Work initiative that we've launched, and it's Dr. Kranthi's work that we're actually embedding into that program to build a digital version of a student. So I'm so curious to hear your story and how you got there, and how that really interesting pathway for researchers. So I'll hand the floor to you, Kranthi.
Thank you, Sam. So it's an unexpected journey for me, because when I came in here 2019, I don't have anything else other than PhD in my mind. Complete PhD degree, get a certificate, go back to your country or my home country, and teaching is my passion. That is the only thing I have that in my mind when I started my PhD. And obviously that is one of the career most of the PhD students think. That's until mid of my PhD. I was thinking of publications. That is obviously what we care about when you are doing PhD. After meeting Sam, I got a call one day around 6 or 5:30. I don't know.
Sorry, Kranthi.
It's like back home time, and I have 2 kids, obviously. They also come home, and I got a call and asking about doing Impact 10X, that is 20. In 2022, then I said, I have a paper submission in 2 days. Sorry, I'm not interested. But then I thought, after a while, back in my mind, I said, it is something different, because I was doing my participant recruitment and collecting data from my participants from my study. And the big goal is personalization. We all know what is happening in education. That when I'm collecting data, students are on holidays, and I got 2 days gap, 2 to 3 days gap, and Sam told about it's a three-day journey. They said, anyway, I have 3 days gap, and I should try something different. Then, I said yes, but I say sorry again. If I haven't say yes to that opportunity, my journey would be very different. yes, that traditional pathway, finishing PhD and teaching. Yes, now
You went
I'm
on the
also an
bungee.
educator.
Yeah, like to Richard's metaphor on the bungee, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I still, I'm on my dream career. I'm an educator, but still like an enhanced career with doing that, knowing the impact of my research. It's not the only publications, it's not just the thesis. Hardly 10 or 100 people may read it in my lifetime. But when you come out, when you talk to the people, what is the impact it is going to create? Through different pathways, especially entrepreneurship, you need to constantly communicate to different kinds of audience. That's what I learned from Impact 20. And then after I submitted my thesis, I did again another internship with Sam Horseman, Impact 27.
She can't get away from me.
Yeah, coming back because
Kranthi.
I came from like a computer science background. It's always, usually I don't say, but mostly IT students or computer science students, they stick to their own room or laptop. That's what we do. And unfortunately, we don't have field work. Our field work is always the laptop or your computers. We don't have outside knowledge or communication. We are like very silent, silos, sitting in silos. So it changed my way, coming out, talking to people, talking the product or the tool or the technology we are developing, from CEOs, CTOs to my end users. That range of communication I have developed, which couldn't happen if I don't take this opportunity. So that is very important, especially like I like to quote another thing, like for a PhD student, you are the expert, like we are the brand ambassador. If we are not talking about our own research, nobody else will talk about, because we know the problem, how big it is, and we know 1,000 ways how to solve it. But we propose an efficient way of solving that particular problem. So we have that breadth and depth of the problem, which we researched or spent like 5 or 6 years of our career. So come out of just only one outcome or two, like only publications, think about different ways, like industry. If I want to go into industry, just like I can go with my own company, that is an alternative way, but I like teaching. I want to be in this space. So it's both helping my industry and also my professional career, like teaching field, academia, like routine, traditional pathway. So it's like explore the ways. We have more than just teaching career. We can go as a consultant or project managers, because we learn all the things when we are researching. We know how to manage time, budgeting, minimum resources. With minimum resources, we try to solve a problem. So we got a lot of skills, which we call them as transferable skills, that they are very important now for students, especially what is very important when AI is replacing our jobs. Those human skills, still important. We learn them throughout our journey. So yes, it takes time to come out of that comfort zone, but the more we keep our outside, talking to people, different kinds of people, whether it is science or non-technical people, it improves our like everything. That's what I learned through this journey with Sam and Impact 10X especially. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And this is a great segue into some of the discussions we've been having over the last connectivity cafes, which is what makes us human and how do we differentiate ourselves, right, with AI. And we always go back to the World Economic Forum research that was actually published last year in the skills report. I'm sure you've all read it. And it looks at 3 core areas. So we need to be thinking about pathways and building the future, and how do we build these skills into our curriculum for that future pathway of humanity. So those 3 C's, if you remember, is creativity, right? Collaboration, and also critical systems thinking. So I'll be testing you after this. But we as tertiary industry need to be thinking about, well, how do we, if we know this information, if we know that data, how are we building this into our future pathways and our future programs? So JCU has actually taken that on board, and we built PhD at Work, which is exactly that pathway where we're building that academic rigor, but we're making sure that the actual research sits inside the organization. So there's great models like this, GE, for example, FastWorks, Eric Ries's work, if you want to follow that. But it's building that academic rigor, the university PhD, into an organization, and then looking at specific industry challenges and taking those challenges and then building and binding that research to those specific challenges, which I think spoke to your comment, Adam. It's that continual journey, that whole research loop, that you may get into this and then you keep building that R&D, which is really, really important, which I'm so happy to hear in the new government strategy on the 15-year projection of science and innovation, that there is a title there around commercialization and the R&D alignment. And this is what we're missing, that R&D science park piece to that whole model. And that's what we're building here with our industry in residence. So a little bit of, I guess, promotion about tomorrow's session around, we're bringing in our industry and we're doing reverse pitching. We want to hear from industry. What are your research needs? What keeps you up at night? So that's the session for tomorrow. I thought I'd leave the floor now to panelists for any questions or insights that anyone has. And if you'd like to come up here and take my spot, and then we're going to play Pass the Mic for the last 5 minutes. And if anyone has a specific question, yep. So I've got Wayne AI. I call Wayne by his company because he is Wayne and he's Wayne AI. And he's wearing his t-shirt. That's right. Amazing. Great. Excellent. So we've got a little line up here. Excellent. So there you go.
My question's for Adam. As a skin cancer sufferer myself, and I had a BCC cut out of my nose, and possibly I got to go for a biopsy for a possible squelmish cell. First part of the question is the laser treatment then like a more painless option, because biopsies are quite painful?
Yeah, the whole research that went in behind it was to use low power laser to basically act like an ultrasound. So it's completely non-invasive, completely painless. And what it does is it'll allow the clinician to see on a screen 2 different views. What would be presented normally if they'd taken a biopsy is called a histopathologic view, which is a slice of the tissue. It can do something in that view. And then there's a surface view called on face, which is like as if you'd shaved the lesion, okay? And interestingly, it can do a stack of those and convert it into a 3D stack, a little bit like a CT scan. And then you can apply certain filters on it to look at the vascularity of the lesion or the melanin in the lesion. So the idea is that the 10 minutes that it takes to do the imaging then gives the clinician some decision support, allowing them to make a decision on, do I treat this with a topical treatment? Do I actually need to biopsy this to confirm it as a squamous cell carcinoma or basal cell carcinoma or melanoma? And then, basically, in many cases, the concept is to avoid another patient visit for that, so you can go off and have it done. So to answer your question, yes, it's painless and non-invasive and fast.
So second part of the question, then you were talking about research leading to more research. Are you then working on the research to use a similar technology to actually remove the lesion rather than having to have skin grafts, etc.?
So in medical devices, they tend to be fairly segregated in what they do. And so you have diagnostic devices, you have therapeutic devices. So there would be more likely to be a device that might provide either a particular kind of chemotherapy, and believe it or not, I saw this being trialled on potatoes, or a very localized radiation therapy to that lesion. But the research that is going into improving the diagnostic device, which is looking at categorizing what type of lesion you have, is AI. So that as you pass the device over a skin lesion, it's got a live image, and of course with machine learning can recognize patterns in images, and lesions have certain patterns, and therefore it can further improve the confidence for the clinician that, you know, it is a particular lesion of a particular kind. So that's where the research is going. Also in terms of making the device lighter, more compact, less, it generates a laser beam, right? So it chews a bit of energy, so improving its energy efficiency, things like that. So there's all kinds of different doorways in terms of research for even an existing device.
Awesome, thank you. Hey, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Jared. I'm a co-founder for Redactor AI and Hello World AI, some AI native software companies. I'm also the senior QA and automation engineer at Whatstilla. My question is to the entire panel, I guess, and including Sam. Given that, the rapid increase in AI's capability is it's gotten to the point where it can do the work that a traditional PhD would offer to industry, especially in the terms of coding, data analysis, and literature reviews. Has the value of a traditional PhD been diminished? What can we do within a traditional PhD program to bridge that gap? Or is there a way for someone with a traditional PhD to sort of differentiate themselves from someone like myself, who's an engineer with a supercomputer behind them?
Can I make an initial comment?
Yep. Great question, Jared.
I think AI learns from what we give it, right? And so if we don't give it anything new, it's not going to learn anything new. And even the failures that we experience are useful. And Hilary would like
to... just on that point, that is exactly the same way we train humans. So, like, fundamentally, I'm not sure there's a difference.
As somebody who didn't do a PhD, so I guess but I thought about it, and my parents have PhDs and mentored a lot of PhDs, so I grew up talking to a lot of PhDs. I think that the value of a PhD is probably not so much in the data coding and what is the painful part, although probably a lot of the learning is now going to be done automated, or has the opportunity to be done automated. I think some of the operation of the workflow is actually where you have the learning. So to his point, the data in, or how you take that data in, is actually a huge amount of the learnings. Like, you can have bad quality data, but the learning is why are you getting that bad quality data? How is asked where they're not answering the questions in a way that gives you that insight? So I think that there's an element of the critical thinking of one of the 3 C's on PhDs that really PhD candidates are hopefully getting out of their PhDs. And I think that the other element is that hopefully AI can augment PhDs to an aspect where they can have more of that learning, because they're hopefully getting the balance, or I think one of the things is getting the balance right in terms of being able to automate, but not losing the insights that you get from actually being connected and on the ground. But I think the PhD at work is a great program because you're getting more of the hands-on, because I think you can spend less time in front of the computer and hopefully more time on actually understanding the problem, so you're solving the right thing to begin with. And hopefully iterating faster would be another aspect that I think hopefully people can get out of PhDs and solve more problems in this world. I don't know if that's too idealistic, but Richard, you seem like anybody want to add to anything?
I guess, and yeah, I appreciate you've thought about this a lot. So PhD is Doctor of Philosophy, right? And I think it goes to Hilary's point. It's a learning process for yourself. It's not about the product or necessarily the project you're doing, well, in my case anyway, but it's about how to generate a hypothesis, set up a structure so that you can test and challenge your hypothesis and see if you can continue the learning. And you say, well, AI can do that, right? But are you going to say, AI, come up with a hypothesis, right? So presumably you come up with an hypothesis yourself, and then you continually interrogate AI to help grow your hypothesis, disprove your hypothesis, and keep your idea going. With AI, I think it's just iterative, and maybe it's simplistic, but I remember even 30 years ago, you used to bash nucleotide sequences using computer modelling, and you could do it yourself and it would take you days and days, but you could do it all of a sudden in like 3 minutes, and it was just a fantastic tool. And so more recently, I'm bootstrapping for a startup, and I think, well, I've got to write a patent application. I know how to do it. You can get Claude to do it as well if you want. But, there's still going to be interrogation that you have to do. You're going to take it to a patent attorney. You're going to discuss with it before the non-provisional kicks in. And I actually attended a very nice seminar on AI and governance and IP management last week. And it was just fascinating because the system's set up now. I remember being asked to do freedom to operate IP search, and it took me 5 days to do it. And this was, I think, 8 or 9 years ago. And the structure AI was using to do the patent search was exactly the same. I was just shocked actually as how I'd approached it. But it takes AI like an hour or 2 hours. And I was thinking, gosh, imagine if I could have had that 5 years ago. So it's not, I think, that it replaces you. I think it's a tool that makes you better, and you just have to work out how to interrogate it and use it.
So yeah, when we have AI, still is the traditional PhD valuable? That is the question, right? Yeah. Am I changing?
It's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's
not that it isn't value, it is how do we bridge the gap between the
yeah.
versions of AI and the traditional way we do.
So in my up to my knowledge, it's like we are trying to solve a problem, whether it is related to a society we care about, or the people, or the company, or someone else. We are trying to give something back, knowledge. First, through PhD as a self-learning journey, first we try to understand the problem, and talking to the people, even though we have developed fantastic tool, if nobody is going to use, there is no value of developing or putting that much time into developing a tool. So yes, we have AI. We can create a tool or a product or a software within days. But at the end of the day, a person has to go sit with the client or the user and tell them and be there supporting. That is still the human communication or the empathy which we show as researchers more than AI. So yeah, that's my take on this.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm overly qualified to speak on this, but I do think there's something really human about the PhD approach. I think AI can be complementary. It's about balance as we move forward, and it enables, I suppose, students to have a workspace online that can help facilitate their learning experience. It's interesting because when you're at university, I only have a bachelor's degree, that's why I don't feel, keen to speak on this too much, but it's raw and it's real, and there's a real value to that sense of education. Knowledge is power, and you have that. It's not a digital download, it's an authentic human experience. So I think AI can be complementary of that, but will never overtake it, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Amazing. I think we'll leave it at that. So thank you, Jared. Great question. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are over time, and I am conscious that we have our next panel coming up. So before we do that, though, can we please put our hands together, a big drum roll for our amazing panelists. It's been great, really great discussion, and thank you for adding your insights and the conversation. So we've got, you're going to stay where you are, but we've got the next panel going. But if anyone would like to just move around, take a quick rest break, we've got Paul Giacomin here. So can I have you up on stage? The next panel, we're looking at those, it was already the TRLs and the Valley of Death. Worth staying for.